They called it asterisk the lesson. Asterisk I was dragged into a vast amphitheater carved from steel and shadow, its walls humming with alien machinery that felt older than empires. Cold chains bit into my wrists and ankles as they fastened me to a platform in the center, under a light so bright it burned my eyes. Around me, tiered rows of alien spectators filled the hall. Some were scaled and reptilian, others covered in fur bristling like needles, others nothing more than chitin and eyes. Predators, every one of them, and all staring at me like I was a specimen pinned to a board. A massive holographic projection flickered to life above the stage, displaying a human body, skin peeled away to expose organs, muscles, and bones. The lecturer, a reptilian general with eyes like burning coals, strutted before the image. His voice was a hiss, translated through the ship speakers. "Observe the fragility," he said, taloned finger tapping the hologram. "The thin skin. The weak bone structure. The exposed organs." He stabbed his claw toward the chest cavity. "Strike here, the heart ceases. Strike here, the lungs collapse. Break the skull, and the creature is no more. Humans, primitive, soft, killable." The audience laughed. Some barked, others screeched, some clapped their claws together in mocking applause. They thought it was comedy. A joke. A list of instructions on how to destroy the last remnant of a forgotten species. I stood silent, my jaw tight, blood seeping from where the chains cut into my skin. I listened to their so-called wisdom, their confident certainty. And I waited. Because while they knew every diagram of a human body, there was one thing they hadn't charted, one thing they had no lecture for. What happens when the human fights back? They stabbed me first. A long, serrated blade slid between my ribs, puncturing flesh, scraping bone. The crowd leaned forward, eager to see the fragile human crumple. I staggered, coughed blood, felt the iron taste flood my mouth, but I didn't fall. Their eyes widened when I wrapped both hands around the blade, yanked it free, and drove my fist into the attacker's throat with a sound like snapping wood. He dropped, gasping, "Not me." Another came forward with a crushing blow, a war club descending toward my skull. I raised my arm, bone shattering under the strike, pain exploding white-hot through my nerves. My knees buckled, but my vision cleared through the agony. The alien sneered, expecting me to collapse, yet I lunged forward, broken arm dangling uselessly, and sank my teeth into his throat. He shrieked, thrashing as black blood sprayed the platform. They tried suffocation next. A massive creature, all muscle and fangs, wrapped arms like iron bands around my chest, squeezing until my ribs groaned and my vision darkened. I let it close in tighter, let it believe it had won, until in its triumph it loosened just enough. I slammed my forehead into its snout, once, twice, until cartilage shattered. When it fell, I sucked in air like fire, coughing but alive. Around me, the amphitheater no longer laughed. The predators stared in silence, claws twitching, antennae curling, eyes narrowing with something dangerously close to fear. Every method they had sworn would end me had failed. I was bleeding, half broken, breath rattling in my lungs, but I was still standing. Pain tore through me, but pain was not death. I dragged myself upright, spitting blood, and let them see the truth they had forgotten. We don't stop when we're hurt. We fight until we win, or until nothing's left. The corridors beyond the amphitheater were narrow and stinking of oil, metal, and fear. Sirens blared overhead as I stumbled forward, my body screaming with every step. The blade wound still leaked down my side, my arm hung useless, but I pushed on until I reached a chamber that smelled different, stale air, rot, despair. Rows of energy-sealed cells stretched into the darkness, each glowing faintly with containment fields. I stopped, staring. Inside those cells were prisoners, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Shapes I could barely comprehend. One cell held a creature that looked like a wolf sculpted from iron, its fur like sharpened blades, its golden eyes dulled with defeat. Another contained an insectoid being with 6 limbs folded tight, its carapace cracked where it had been beaten. In another, a shadow stirred, shifting like smoke barely given form. They all lifted their heads when they saw me. At first there was no recognition, just curiosity at the bloody, staggering human. But then the insectoid hissed through its broken mandibles, its voice carrying a whisper. "Human. You live." The word spread through the chamber like a ripple in water. Murmurs rose from cages that had been silent for years. They had heard of humans. They had been told we were long dead, hunted to extinction. To see one alive, bleeding, yes, but alive, ignited something. For the first time in I don't know how long, I saw hope spark in alien eyes. Not hunger. Not fear. Hope. I pressed my hands against the nearest field, electricity biting into my skin. I'm getting you out, I said, voice raw, half broken, but certain. Because in that moment, I understood. My survival wasn't just mine anymore. I wasn't fighting for one human life. I was fighting for every prisoner, every forgotten soul in those cages. And together, we wouldn't stay forgotten. The breakout began with sparks and screams. I had torn the power conduits from the wall, my fingers blistered and bleeding as I forced wires together, short-circuiting the containment fields. One by one, the cages flickered, then burst open in showers of blue light. The silence of despair shattered as creatures of every shape and size stepped free, their eyes blazing with something fierce and dangerous. They didn't need speeches. They had been waiting for this moment for too long. The wolf things stretched, their metal-like fur bristling as they fell naturally into formation, shoulders brushing as they prepared to hunt. The insectoids moved with eerie precision, clattering mandibles snapping as they signaled to one another in a rhythm of clicks. Even the shadows flowed like liquid, slipping into the walls and vanishing from sight, ready to strike from nowhere. But it wasn't just them. They looked to me, not because I was strongest, not because I was fastest, but because I had reminded them what it meant to resist. And so I showed them what humans had always known. Survival wasn't just endurance, it was defiance. We hit the guards first. They expected scattered prisoners, weak and starving. Instead, they faced a pack that fought like it had nothing left to lose. The wolves tore throats with steel fangs. The insectoids skewered soldiers on jagged limbs. The shadows dragged screaming guards into the dark, leaving nothing behind but silence. And me, I was everywhere. Broken bones, torn flesh, none of it mattered. I fought with fists, with stolen blades, with sheer rage. Every strike I landed wasn't just my own, it carried the weight of every prisoner who'd ever been chained. The aliens thought they could cage us. Instead, we became wildfire. And once it starts burning, wildfire doesn't stop. The ship groaned like a wounded beast as alarms echoed through every corridor, red light flooding the steel walls. We moved as one, an army born in minutes, our rage carrying us forward faster than fear could stop us. The hunters scrambled, trying to form lines, but their discipline collapsed the moment they realized we weren't breaking. For the first time in their long reign, they were the ones cornered. A commander, tall and plated in heavy armor, barked orders in a guttural language. His voice shook with something I recognized instantly: panic. "You cannot kill them all," he shouted, rallying his troops. I stepped through the smoke and fire, blood dripping from my face, every breath searing my chest. "You never could," I spat back. We hit them like a storm. The wolves slammed into their ranks, metal fur shredding flesh as they tore apart the front line. The insectoids struck in synchronized waves, their movement so precise it was like watching living blades. Shadows slipped through cracks in the bulkheads, emerging behind enemy soldiers to slit throats before fading back into nothingness. And me, I was the tip of the spear. A broken arm hung at my side, my ribs grated with every movement, but I fought with a ferocity they couldn't measure. I ripped rifles from claws, turned them against their owners, drove boots into faces until teeth shattered. Every time one of them thought I'd fall, I rose again, dripping blood but still advancing. The amphitheater had been their stage to humiliate me. Now, the entire ship was our battlefield, and their empire was bleeding out on its own decks. The hunters, the conquerors, the self-proclaimed apex predators of the galaxy, were finally learning what it felt like to be prey. The command core was a cathedral of power, towering walls lined with control panels, the ceiling alive with holographic projections of star systems under their dominion. It smelled of ozone and burning metal as we forced our way inside, guards cut down in seconds by the wave of fury at my back. I limped toward the central console, the glow of data streams reflecting off my blooded face. At first, I expected military schematics, fleet deployments, or weapon designs. But what I found buried deep within the archives chilled me more than any blade could. They hadn't just studied humans for weakness. They had catalogued our history, wars, disasters, colonies that endured impossible odds. Each file was a record of survival. Each note a reminder of battles fought long after we should have fallen. I opened one file. A recording, alien-voiced, * humanity persists beyond reason. They adapt, they endure, they retaliate. Fear of them spreads faster than their fleets ever could. *. That was it, their entire empire balanced on fear. The lesson I had been forced to endure wasn't to educate the galaxy on how to kill us. It was to * control the narrative star. They wanted every species to believe humans were fragile myths, erased from existence, a cautionary tale never to rise again. But capturing me had broken their lie. My existence was the proof they could never bury. And if the galaxy saw me alive, fighting, defying everything they preached, their empire of fear would collapse. I turned to the prisoners who had followed me into the core, their faces lit by the holographic glow. They were never teaching how to kill us, I said, my voice rough but steady. They were teaching how to hide from the truth. And now, the truth was free. We seized the warship in fire and blood. The last of their commanders fell screaming into the abyss of the reactor pit, his voice cut short by the roar of machinery. The ship's alarms silenced one by one, replaced by the thrum of engines under our control. For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of exhausted breathing, the kind that comes after the impossible has been done. The prisoners, once bent and broken, now stood tall among the wreckage. The wolves raised their steel-coated heads to the ceiling, howling as free creatures for the first time in years. The insectoids clicked in perfect rhythm, a battle song older than the stars. Even the shadows shimmered with strange pride. We gathered in the command chamber. My body ached, every wound screaming, but I forced myself to stand before the central projector. With a flick of stolen claws, I activated the ship's broadcast array. The galaxy itself became my audience. Billions of eyes across 1,000 worlds watched as the feed lit their skies. They saw me, ragged, blood-soaked, but unbroken. A human. A being they had been told was extinct. I stared into the transmission and let them hear my voice. They thought they knew how to kill us. They were wrong. Pain is not death. Fear is not surrender. Humanity does not break. And if you come for us, you'd better pray we don't come for you. Silence followed, a silence that stretched across stars. And then, like sparks catching fire, the silence shattered into whispers, then roars, then uprisings. The galaxy learned that day what I had always known. We don't die easy. We never did. And now, every predator in the stars knew it too.